In a world of EMS podcasters, EMS Office Hours is the only live podcast bringing you the latest topics and opinions in EMS. Turn down your scanner and turn up your speakers as we join Jim Hoffman and Josh Knapp on their latest EMS podcasting journey.
All righty. Josh is here. So we're live, Josh.
Hello, guys.
What's up?
Hi, Josh.
Hey, Dave. Happy New Year.
To you as well.
Happy the New Year's. So we'll see what happens. I put this on Facebook yesterday, and we'll see who pops in to join us in the comments. But Happy New Year. How long do you go Happy New Year? Today's the 17th. What's the cutoff?
I think yesterday was the Lunar New Year, wasn't it? Or it's today. It might be today. It's today.
The loony New Year?
The lunar.
Right.
So Josh is drinking his coffee.
Yep. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm allowed to have coffee still.
Yes. One thing I wanted to I don't know. There was a little meme thing that I put on Facebook. It's a picture of an ambulance, and the wording that I said was it's not about getting coffee. And there were people that got a little butthurt with that, commenting, "Oh yeah, I think my low pay, overworked body can, deserves a cup of coffee, in the morning, or it's not about coffee, but yeah, I need to have it, stuff like that." And I think that the people see the picture, but they don't read the text that I put, that goes along with the picture. And I pretty much, the reason why I put that there was that I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this, but I've had partners over the years and people that I've worked with over the years that won't check the ambulance, won't engage with anybody until they have a cup of coffee in their hand. So, I'm in the back checking out the ambulance, checking the fuel, checking the oxygen, all this stuff. We're in service. The call could drop at any minute. And they're walking around outside the ambulance, lollygagging and have a nice cup of coffee. And that is like their priority when they come into work. Instead of coming in and getting ready for the call that could drop at any second. And nowadays, as we all know, most places the call volume is higher, and you can get a call any second. I put some posts up about a quick 60-second checkoff of the ambulance, so that while you're in service, if you do get a call before you finish checking out the entire truck, you've got 60 seconds. You can do a lot there to get the primary things done. So have you guys ever had people like that, or are you like that, Josh, when you get to work?
Generally, no.
Yeah.
I had to think about that. I want to say yes. I mean, the id in me wants to say yes, but the superego and ego basically say, well, examples prove you wrong. And so when I was like this and the tones went off or the call came in, you put the coffee down, or you try to sip it along. If you're teching, then you try to sip it along the way as you're going to the job, usually spilling some on you. And
yeah.
So it's
well, listen, I'm all for it. If you want to get coffee and then start checking the truck and stuff like that as you're doing it, that's listen, I'm human. It's all right. You can do that. But my thing is doing nothing. I'm doing everything, and you're doing nothing, but making sure you got your caffeine fixed. I mean, yeah, I want coffee too.
How's the quickest way to
getting a cup of coffee is my responsibility. It's like brushing my teeth, getting dressed. It needs to be done before I can have a second cup, but being ready to do the job is my job. That's
honestly,
the
job. You know, if we really, I mean, I don't know. I know some people who roll out of bed and you could tell they must have slept in their uniform, and they get on the bus and they're still, you know, in dreamland, and you're like, whatever, you know, people like that. But you know, also the surest way to to piss off your steady crew is to show up just in time. You know, if your shift starts at 3 o'clock and you're at 2:58, you know, every freaking day, it gets annoying. But usually, you know, first thing, because I can't find my way into the shower unless I have caffeine in me. So first thing in the morning, the alarm goes off. The pot, if it's not already programmed, is flipped on. Have coffee for a few minutes, take a shower, go to work, and then get another cup of coffee and breakfast, which is why I now have 2 stents.
No, it's not. It's why you have 2 stents and you're not dead. Let me explain. I don't know. You guys read my stuff?
Yes,
I read your
the nerd list stuff.
So the high stress caffeine fueled day that I've had for 20 years, Dave, is you're saying what saved my life?
The caffeine has saved your life. The stress,
God bless. I can say that.
That's another issue. Your genetics, I don't know. You know, I didn't run into you on any of my prolific walks, but perhaps you were doing them elsewhere.
You considering you're at the ass end of Long Island.
I'm in the middle,
and
Long Island.
And I am in the Big Apple with plenty of 1 mile to every 10 blocks. 20 blocks.
20 blocks.
1 mile to every 20 blocks. And I should know that. I walk probably 4 to 5 miles a day easily.
Good.
Yeah.
That's the reason why you're here with stents as opposed to buried.
You know what? The stents were a complete surprise to everybody, including my cardiologist. We were just trying to track down some like annoying discomfort. It wasn't even pain, and it didn't stop me. And of course, right up to that, I went out running and jogging, you know, and doing exercise, getting my heart rate up. And
which is why you're still here.
Yeah.
If you run every day for 100 years, you'll live to be an old man.
All right.
Listen, and we got to.
Does one have to do with the other? I think the 100 years has to do more with being an old man.
So we
got this guy Rob who thinks coffee's good any time of the day, and I can't disagree with him.
Yeah.
Oh, I can.
Well, listen, like I said, I'm human. I like having coffee in the morning too. My whole thing is the you know, like you said, Dave. Let's do the job. Let's get ready for the call, you know, before the tones drop, and then you can have all the coffee you want, you know,
right.
You know, because really, you know, even going to the call, Josh, like you said, you're texting, you don't know sipping. I mean, you know, to me, when you go into the call, it's not a time to sip coffee either. It's time to read the CAD, think about what the call's going to be, maybe review a protocol if it's something you haven't done in a while, things like that, to be actively engaged in the call from the second you get it. Not waiting to get there and then, you know, being surprised by what you might find. I had that happen too. When I look over my partner and he's drinking coffee, we get to the call. He's like, what did it say? How are we getting in? I'm like, we have to go around the back. They can use the back door, or this is the code to get in, or whatever it is. And they're totally clueless because they didn't even read the CAD on the way to the call.
Yeah,
you know,
but if it's
there's a time and place for everything.
Yeah, Jim, if it's your regular truck and you've been on the bus for a while, you hear the call come over and, you know, it's 13 Willie, you know, for the diff breather on 178th Street. You know, you pretty much know the building. You've covered that before. You might even know.
Well, there's some regularity, I
so
guess.
Be looking at the CAD and to, analyze everything in the CAD while you're, you can be sipping coffee and doing all of that.
The problem is when you're sipping coffee and not doing that.
Right.
Well, that's a whole different thing, Dave. Even if you're not sipping coffee and not doing that, that's a problem.
Right. In other words, let's know our job and do our job.
Sounds like a boss.
On the topic of knowing and doing our job, we would be remiss as a podcast, of course, if we didn't at least briefly discuss.
Oh Lord,
the EMS folks who were charged with murder in Illinois. Have you guys read any of that or watched the video?
Have you watched the cam?
I did.
Cam?
Yes.
You did? Okay. All right.
You?
I absolutely have an opinion based on what they were doing. And
I'm sure everybody who's listening or watching has an opinion.
And on top of that, wait a second.
I don't think you're going to like my opinion, but go.
Sort of just what we were just talking about, right? People who sit there, they read the CAD, they check out the rig, they make sure they have their stuff. They're basically doing their job as their job should be done.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had these two knuckleheads. And I wasn't in their shoes. They could have been beaten to crap. It could have been their 12th job at 5 o'clock in the morning. They've been going since 10 o'clock the night before. And they just had it. But there is an aspect of that whole interaction from, the time they were waiting for the medics to the time that they put that patient on the stretcher that was, how do I put this? Use some golf terminology. Subpar. Subpar. How do you feel, Jim? I know how Dave was going to feel.
I'm pretty sure how Dave's going to feel too, but here's how I feel.
If you want to keep yours to the last, it's your show,
I'm
your
privilege. To chime in.
Yeah, and Dave is always. Yeah.
I'll tell you how I am this way because Dave's gonna totally disagree with me. I'm sure. Here's my thing.
Give him a break.
These are two providers. I think one was like 50 years old, one was 40 something years old. Mm-hmm. They've probably been doing EMS for a while. They've seen every bullshit call that you've come across, I'm sure. They've had patients who they get to the house who are uncooperative, who are flopping around, who are, acting the fool and either maybe drunk or high or just looking for attention and looking to get out of the house to go to the house, whatever the case is. All right. And I've had those calls. I've been them where I've walked into a home and I was less than interested in dealing with somebody who is not cooperating and there's not a lot I can do for them. And I'm trying to get them out the door to get them to the hospital. They won't even try to walk with me to get to the stretcher. Okay. And I've been in that moment. I've been frustrated like that, especially like you said, Josh, getting hammered all day, maybe with calls all week. Maybe you just had some drunk the call before and now you're just sick of it. Right. And you're not, what's happening is that you end up not seeing the underlying issue that might have been going on with the patient. For me, anyone that's worked with me and knows me knows that I will have that same sort of way that they were acting with the patient. But at the same time, in the back of my head, I'm like, wait a minute, something else might be going on. I better do an assessment. I need to check vitals. I need to check what might be happening with this patient because it might not just be that drunk. It might not just be the person who's being uncooperative for whatever reason, right? And you have to kind of, while you might be working in the job for quite a while and being frustrated and being burnt or being overworked or whatever the case may be, at some point as a provider, you need to take a breath and go, okay, it's not about me right now. I need to figure out what's going on with the patient. So while I probably wouldn't have been in a position where I would have put the patient face down on the stretcher and maybe not done anything for them in the ambulance or whatever, where they die on me, right? I can see the myself being how they are walking into a scene like that. Okay. And trying to get the patient to get up and get onto the ambulance. Okay, let's go. We're going to go now. And they're not cooperating. They can't even make it to the truck for whatever reason. And you're getting frustrated. You're getting, irritated with that because you don't see the underlying issue that might be going on, But at some point, you guys say, okay, why is the patient doing this? And try to look further into it, And if anybody out there listening to this, if you've been in EMS for any length of time, you ever walked into a call like that and had the same sort of facial expression that these two people had, and the same sort of, irritation that they might have felt, you're full of shit, because everybody out there is, if you've been doing it for any length of time, you've had this type of call, right? And yeah, you probably do like I do. You say, okay, fuck it, I got to deal with this person. I've got to do an assessment. I have to check out what's going on with them, right? They didn't do that, apparently. They got to the point where they just totally didn't care and ended up,
Okay, Dave is about to bust.
So Dave is busting.
So let's, because
is busting.
I am, go ahead.
So I think we have to stop teaching EMTs to do this. They learn it somewhere. They don't learn it in class. You don't teach it in class. You don't teach them to roll their eyes. You don't teach them to talk about people that are abusers or whatever in any derogatory terms. We don't teach them to do that. They learn that. They can learn that while they're doing rotations. I've seen that. I've seen them come back with this stuff. We don't teach them to tell people, by the way, this guy presented altered. I heard his respiratory rate. They didn't take a single vital sign. They didn't check his sugar. Not that I saw. They did. My wife looked at him. My wife's not medical. She says, "What's wrong with them? They didn't even take a pulse." I said, we don't teach people to be not caring. We need to teach them. And I'm into this. We need to teach them to care. I would rather treat what most people think is the most despicable kinds of patients, which I don't buy that, but I know who they are. They don't want to. They came in there without a stair chair.
Where was
Matt,
their bag?
Look at the stair chair. This guy.
Where was their bag? Where was their tech bag?
There was none of that. But I would rather treat them with the respect that every human deserves. Nobody in 5th grade says, I want to grow up to be a detoxing alcoholic who can't even take care of himself. Nobody says that. If they become that, they become that. But I would rather treat them with respect and dignity for 20 minutes than be them for a microsecond. All right? They need help. And if you are at the point in your life where you have to fake this, I would rather treat you with respect than be you with a microsecond, be you for a microsecond. That's what they deserve. And if we do this universally, if we teach this, if we tell people that taking care of folks is what we do, and we don't get to pick our customers. Our customers call us and we take care of them. The first words out of my mouth would have been, and anybody who knows me would have said, I know what Dave's going to say already. Hey, my name is Dave. I'm a paramedic. I'm going to take really good care of you. First words out of my mouth. I've thrown down the gauntlet and now it's my time to do it. I have a friend who is an attorney who often represents patients. And he said to me, oh, I got to guess, 4 decades ago, because, these guys are 45, 50 years old. And I joined EMS as an EMT in 79. So I'm doing this almost for as long as most of those guys are alive. He said to me, you know what? My patients, my customers, the plaintiffs don't want to sue people who've been nice to them. And I'm not, he called it nice, and I call it in my head, treated them with respect professionally. He says, even if they've done something wrong, they don't want to go after them. This patient didn't even have them choose the position. They let him flop into that. He went down face down. I don't think they chose to put him face down. They chose not to flip him over.
Yeah.
They did absolutely, from my point of view, their behavior was terrible. Now, I get it. If they're working 40 hours, we know why you shouldn't work 40 hours. I know why you shouldn't work. I don't want to be the patient you see after 17 hours of a full day. I don't want to be that patient. And sometimes I know they're working longer than that. But I feel bad for them that they got into this situation. But and I'm going to tell you, I see it all the time. I see it where people are walking people out of the house with difficulty breathing. And I'm doing my best because I'm not the first responder. I'm doing my best to I'm telling my crew, pull the stretcher out, get it to the patient. We are not asking them to crawl up these steps.
Yeah.
Get them on the stretcher right away. Because when they collapse, once I've been there, it's my fault.
And the thing is too, Dave, like I said, that I'm not saying these providers were right in what they did. I'm telling you that I've seen it happen, and I've been in that situation.
I haven't always been like this.
And the thing is when you're in that situation as a provider, you have to take a second and, like you said, take the vital signs and stuff like that. And if you find out that it's all BS and it's just an intox or just whatever, take them to the hospital. You don't need to make them flop down face down the stretch or whatever. Take them to the hospital, give them a blanket, the minimum you can do. And then, like you said, 20, 30 minutes, you're done, and that person's out of your life. But as opposed to them losing their life because you didn't do something you should have done. And I think, Dave, you made a good point about training people early on. And this is something that doesn't get done. I remember when I first started as an EMT, there was somebody else was an EMT. They were working with a paramedic. It was at the time, it was just an EMT truck. We were waiting at the hospital to get the ALS approval by Finney to run the ALS versions. But so we were just running EMT truck. But she was working with a medic. The medic was so burnt out, and she was brand new as an EMT, and immediately started taking on his traits with no experience, nothing behind her, other than just watching how he was talking to dispatch, treating the ambulance, treating the calls, treating the paperwork, all of it. And it was like she became like a mini version of him before she even had a year in to the job. And everyone saw it, everyone knew it, and it happens because, like you said, you've got to teach them the opposite and try to train people not to pay attention to that level of disregard for the job, no matter how burnt you are. If you're that burnt, it's time to leave. The thing is too is we need to train people how to do this type of stuff and remind people when they're in class that most of your calls are not going to be these exciting calls. You're going to get calls like this where you're going to have to, deal with these types of patients. You're going to get the homeless patients. You're going to get the intoxicants. You're going to get the people who are just calling because their finger hurts. This is the job. This is what you're signing up for.
Jim, there's a couple of things that work in play in what you're saying. One is just general attitude and the way you present yourself or the way you look at the job. And it's a real shame when you have somebody who's new trying to emulate, maybe they're a popular person, but quote unquote, the burned out medic, 20 years on the job and they're done or whatnot. And they're trying to emulate that and just basic, and lose that new enthusiasm that you have. I mean, when I first got on the bus, I no doubt annoyed many of my steady partners because I had enthusiasm. I was like, let's do that. Let's pick up this. Let's go. Let's go. And, but there's the other side is how we're teaching and what we're teaching and the inconsistency of how we're teaching. And I think that I had a really good instructor when I was in EMT. He was really into the job. He's still in security still in public safety now, working in Washington, D.C. to this day. And he said in an offhand way, but at the end of one of the lectures, and I think it may have been on abuse and alcohol abuse, he said, just remember this: it's the drunks who will end your career. It's the drunks who will catch you off guard. And it's like, I stopped and I did not really understand what that meant until I got on the street. But this is, you know what? We are only seeing a keyhole version of this whole story, regardless of, within your eyes. What?
Yeah, that's true. We're only seeing a small part of we don't know what happened in the back of the ambulance. We don't know.
He may be their most common frequent flyer. If he was, I would expect a better relationship between the crew and the patient. But, he may be like that 30 o'clock, that 4 o'clock in the morning job they get every time. And every time for the last 3 years, it's been complete nonsense.
Yeah.
And usually the guy gets up and walks out and everything else. And this time he's, having difficulty or failing.
I've had patients like that where they're homeless or common intox, and you get them all the time, and then it's the one time that you say, wait a second, something else is going on. I mean, I had a guy once that was always totally passed out drunk, and the one time we found him, he was totally unresponsive. We ended up intubating him, you know, and it's like you bring him in, even the ER is like, what the hell are you doing? We get this guy once a week. Why now is he intubated? You know what I mean?
And who wants to walk a drunk? My God, the easiest way to move an intox patient to the ambulance is the chair.
Yeah. Like Dave said too, right? Trying to walk a diff breather. That is the thing. How are you walking people nowadays with cameras and videos and everything else? You're walking a patient out of the house, holding the oxygen bag with a non-rebreather on. It's insanity. I remember years ago we had pulled up on a multiple motor vehicle collision on the highway, the Belt Parkway, and we pull up, and there were other ambulances there that were volunteers, and we get there, and they've got people walking around with collars on their neck, walking around the scene, and back then, everyone, the collar came with the board, and they matched up, and then that was it. We pull up, and my partner goes, the first thing we're going to do is get all these people with collars, either get the collars off or get them in the ambulance, because if someone sees this, we're the authority on the scene now, and we're going to get burned for it, not all these volleys that are there, doing it. You know what I mean? And not to say all volleys do that. I'm just saying. What's that?
I've seen paid folk do that.
Oh yeah, I'm just saying that situation. It was
but volunteers.
You were right.
Once you got there, you would have wanted to get sued.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen paid people do it where I pull up and they got somebody in the front of the ambulance in the passenger seat with a collar around their neck. I'm like, what the hell is going on? And it's just the optics of things. In this case, like we just said, we don't know everything going on. It doesn't look good,
And maybe we should just be doing good things all the time, so we don't have to worry about how it looks.
That's a great point.
What a goody two shoes!
Listen, I'm going to tell you,
Ricky Rescue.
Two things I wanted to talk about. I know people. I know ALS providers who brag about how often they turf calls to BLS, calls that shouldn't be. Well, they're not seizing it. They're not seizing it anymore. They're not unconscious anymore. Their chest pain went away. I gave them oxygen and they feel better. And they turf all of that to BLS. And I think that's a bunch of baloney. I think it's an attitude that pervades, and that the new medic learns this and passes it on. Back in I'm sure it was in the 50s, maybe before that, there was a Broadway show, which is a very famous Broadway show, South Pacific. You know the song? You know You know the movie?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm familiar
All right.
with
So
South
there's a
Pacific.
song in there which is really about
Alley High.
racism, but it's you've got to be carefully taught to hate and fear. You got to teach people to be disrespectful, and they do. They do. That's number one.
Wait, Dave. You're tapping into.
They are.
You
Hold
are
on. Let me finish my piece here.
okay.
And
okay.
then in the beautiful town in my Long Island, where you think it doesn't exist, we had people living in the woods, a community of people living in the woods. They were needy. They called us frequently, but they were needy and called us. And some of them were calling us for drug and alcohol problems, but they were needy and called us frequently. And I get there one day, and they're being walked out. The patient is being marched out of the woods through the snow, and I yank the stretcher out of the ambulance again, and I get her to sit sit on it, and I say to her, "Hi, my name is Dave. I'm a paramedic. I'm going to take really good care of you." And she started to cry. I said, "What happened?" She said, "Nobody treats me nicely. This is the first time I've heard that in years." So I said, that was the right thing to do. It was the right thing to do. All right, now you can beat me up if I said anything offensive.
It's a difficult thing because, what Jim was saying today, with the idea of everybody has a camera on them. My God, this is, I'm not sure if it was Orwell in 1984 who had the concerned citizens.
Big Brother.
And they had the cameras. What?
Big Brother.
That's where Big Brother. That was from. Cameras, but it even had citizens, and they had cameras on their eyeglasses. And where would we see this? Go down to Vision Center
Google.
or Lens Crafters. You can get frames with cameras that stream to your account. Yeah. So it's a lot more difficult today. I mean, I still remember about 10 years ago there was a job in the Bronx where there was above a bodega or a third story above a bodega. There was an apartment fire. There were kids. One of the kids was like a 4 to 6 year old unconscious, and they practically dropped him out the window. And he was caught by a guy on the ground, and he was handed to the EMTs. Now, what they don't say. What they don't say is right after the EMTs, the medics had arrived. The medics were there. They set up the back of their bus. Everything was open. The stretcher was out and everything. So, you have two fairly fresh EMTs with a unconscious baby. And what did they do? They threw him onto the stretcher. Not threw him, but they put him on the stretcher. But the kid he had one arm off the stretcher. He didn't have, they didn't put oxygen on him or anything else. They rolled him the 15 feet to the ALS crew, who basically took over medical care. So all they were there transporting him 15 feet. Somebody with a video camera did that, made the evening news, and you see the kid, flopping off the stretcher, no mask or anything else. Those two EMTs got fired because of the way it looked. Yeah. And anybody who remembers being an EMT can say they can, when medics were when they were at a job that was way above their pay grade, so to speak, and the medics were there at hand, what did you do?
You were happily handing it off.
Happily. And thinking in your head, the best I can do for this patient is get him to the medics quickly. And so that's what they did. And they lost their jobs because they didn't stop. They didn't put in, they didn't strap them down.
Right. Sounds like a terrible reason.
But I'm just saying.
The thing, this is something I think a lot of people have to think about too. Like you said, Dave, if you're doing the right thing all the time and you're conscious about it, you don't have to worry about the optics being bad if somebody takes a picture or a video and things like that. And this is something throughout my time in EMS that I've always been very conscious of, is wrapping people in blankets, making sure arms and legs aren't hanging off, that they're not like in the stretcher halfway and their legs from the knees down are hanging off the back of the stretcher, all this type of thing, so that it looks like I'm caring for this patient, Because forget about cameras and videos and things like that. Think about what family members are thinking of you, thinking about what doctors and nurses think of you when you roll into an ER with somebody's arm dangling off the stretcher, even a cardiac arrest. So how often do you have a cardiac arrest and arms are hanging off and one leg is halfway off the stretcher and everyone's focused on, let's just do compressions. Well, you know what? You probably got about, 4, 5, 6 people there. Somebody can make sure that the patient is presentable while the other people are, doing CPR and other interventions. Instead of everybody standing around, trying to be part of the transport. You know what I mean?
Stuff.
What's that?
The big hero stuff.
It's great to do compressions. It's the key element of what you're doing for a patient in that situation. But the presentation, it means a lot. You especially forget about cameras and videos. What does the family think? Is this the last memory you want them to have of their family member with the arm dangling off the stretcher and the leg half hanging off? You want them to at least remember some sort of dignity that the patient might have had when you were transporting them to the ambulance, and then from the ambulance to the emergency room. Because I always hated that when we got to the hospital, right away, people throwing open the back doors. I'm like, no, don't throw open the back doors. Let's make sure we have everything we need. Get the monitor where it needs to be, get the patient how they need to be, then open the doors and let's open them up. Because most of the time, if the family on scene isn't there waiting for you, their family members have been called. They've been at the hospital waiting for 10, 15 minutes for you to get there. And now you get there, you open it up, and this is the first thing that they see. And that's you don't want that to be, for me, what you want, the last thing you want the family members to remember, their loved one, or even us as a profession, is what they remember, as how we were just sloppy and lazy and didn't really care about, covering up their patient where their genitals are exposed because you didn't take the second to put the sheet back on. You know what I mean? So it goes beyond just worrying about cameras and pictures. It also goes with just the picture that people are taking with their own eyes that they remember. Because these 2 people that did this with this patient, next month you're probably going to forget all about them and the video and everything else. But if a family member sees it, they're going to remember that picture in their mind, forever.
So, Jim, you're saying it was the right thing to do. Always it was the right thing to do. And now they're just documenting whether we're doing it or not. I think you're spot on. We always should have done it. We should continue to do those right things. And if they document us doing stuff, they're going to document us doing the right stuff.
If you make those right things, I think Jim is more talking about the considered, when you talk about patient care versus, the holistic aspect of the job, we're more leaning towards that holistic side, but it has an impact. It makes a difference. Things like, showing up with, if you're doing a transport, showing up with a extra couple of sheets. If you can somehow nab a pillow, have that on your stretcher when you go and pick this person up from a hospital room where they already have this type of thing. If you're talking about 911, you have a couple of extra sheets on the stretcher anyway. Sometimes, unfortunately, you might need it because you can't move a body and you just want to cover it from public view. Or you may need to pick up a heavy person, and you can do, a 4-point lift on a sheet, or just covering somebody up for privacy, and giving them maybe, in the wintertime, an extra sheet over the head helped in the cold weather. I mean, there's so many things that you can do. I've seen rigs come in and the people pull out. And, we've talked about this in the show before, Jim. The guy that comes out, one of his shirt tails is untucked. He's misbuttoned. He has the baseball cap on backwards. There's you present yourself in a certain way. So even before a single word is spoken, you're now on a bad track. So it's so easy to grab not nowadays when they're counting them, but it's pretty easy to grab an extra sheet or something like that you can use as a tool to package your patient in a way that they're comfortable, they look presentable, and you look professional.
And the thing is too is listen, the patient care aspect of EMS, for the most part, it's a no-brainer, right? You can most of the time tell when a patient is sick or not sick. You can, treat chest pain patients, with your eyes closed. It's all these other little things, Josh, like you mentioned, that are the things that people remember more than did you give the nitro, within a certain time frame? Did you get a 12 lead right away and stuff like that? It's the other things that people are going to remember about their interaction with, with EMS. It's the pictures, the negative pictures that you see when you show a picture of a scene. And like you said, you've got providers walking around with, unkempt and shoes boots unlaced and hats on backwards, and the picture gets taken, and they could have been taking care of the patient spot on, been great with the patient and all that. But then the image, that whether somebody sees it, whether they take a picture of it, that ends up lasting more than what you actually did. This goes back to what Dave said before, right? That if you're nice to the patient, rarely are they going to try to sue you, even if you make a mistake, right? They're not looking to get you in trouble if you were nice to them and professional to them, So if you end up looking sloppy and then you're also, you don't care and you don't do the right thing, you're setting yourself up for a problem, and you're setting the people that you're working with on the scene up for a problem. So I think a lot of this ties in, I think, together. What we're talking about as far as this call with these providers getting charged with murder, and also doing the right thing and teaching people in the beginning to do the right thing, and teach them not to have this attitude. Listen, I think I was very lucky in EMS because I ended up getting great partners early on, both when I became an EMT and started working with people. I had great partners. And then when I became a medic, I had great partners, great mentors that showed me the right way to do things, and that helped me, throughout my career, that I didn't slip into the burnt medic mentality so quickly as so many do. But I think it's a cool way to
until
do it.
his third month.
2.5 months took me, But like I said,
where Dave has been in it for 30 years,
right? Yeah, I could see myself having that initial response of walking into a home like that and seeing this patient acting like they were acting. But the professional in me would have been triggered to say, okay, like Dave said, they didn't take any vitals, they didn't take a finger stick, any of that stuff, And when you've got police there to help you manage the patient, as far as maybe holding their arm straight to get that blood pressure or to get that finger stick, then you implement them. Because once you get them in the back of the ambulance, it's going to be you and the patient and your partner's driving. And now he's flopping around. How you getting blood pressures? How you getting finger sticks? How you getting EKGs? With just you and a patient like that who won't hold still, who's flopping around, who's, flailing about.
And apparently he was dying.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I see comments about him having excited delirium, stuff like that. I don't know. I don't know.
Excited delirium?
Because he was very sweaty, all that type of stuff. But who knows? Like you said, we weren't there.
Sweat while having an infarction,
100%.
It's one of the signs.
Whoa, is
right?
it?
It's
Wait
one
a
of
minute.
The signs.
So, that'll bring us to another topic that I don't want to go down right now, which is just prejudice. Prejudice.
Let me just cap off this end with a lesson that should have been taught to me in EMT school, or certainly in medic school. Now EMT should have been from the very beginning, but I didn't learn until I happened to have been lucked out and got a job at a fabulous place with a lot of good people. And we had everybody has all their casts of characters, but we had more good people than anything else. And one of the things that the boss told me, the director of the whole department when I first got hired, is you can do anything with a smile. You can sit there and as long as you're smiling at the family, you can put a pillow over the patient's face and smother them right there in front of them, and they'll thank you for it at the end. But the message is more powerful than maybe an offhanded remark about it. Is that you are, when you are called and you enter, when you knock on that door, when you enter that apartment, when you walk into that scene, you have been called not because that person is having a good day. They're having most likely the worst day of their life. You come in and you smile. A smile puts people at ease. And when you can start off on that foot, instead of notching the terror up, notching the tension up 10 degrees, you've started out on a better foot right from the get-go.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, well, guys, we'll wrap it up there. We're going for about 45 minutes or so I don't want to keep banging it. But I think David made a good point on the excited delirium thing. We should revisit that topic on another show, because it will take.
And remember, the drunks are going to mess you up.
Yeah, and that's true. Drunks and homeless will be the ones that where you lose your job. I've seen it happen. So, all right, guys, that's it. Want to mention anything before we head out, Dave, Josh?
Dave, you doing any more of your fabulous 12 leads?
Oh my gosh. I'm putting together a class now. There's all sorts of new material. It's hard to squeeze it into 16 hours, but I am very excited because at the end of this month and the beginning of next month, I'm going to be presenting in exotic Duluth.
Wow.
Where right now I think they're buried in snow, and I understand
I think they
at
are
night
too.
With the wind chill, it might be -10, and I'm excited to be there. I am looking forward to it.
You're in Florida right now, right, Dave?
I'm in Florida right now, but I am excited to be going to Duluth. I want to visit.
You got to pack differently.
The geography. I want to talk to the folks there. I don't mean talk at them. The presentation is one thing, but I'm anxious to speak with folks who are working in Duluth and understand their culture, their EMS culture.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's actually another episode to talk about when it comes to EMS cultures and of EMS in different areas, which is something over the years I think I've learned, is important, You
don't have to go far from your home base to find a new culture.
Yeah, that's true too.
You're sitting on, wait a second, you're sitting on the bus, and there's the company, your organization has switched over your EKG electrodes to a different brand, and you have the guy that's sitting there pissing and bitching that the brand isn't good, the old brand was better, blah blah blah, and then you get out into the country where you have people, and I was listening to a crew. There was a reporter that went out with one of these tribal crews who work on a reservation that could be, 300,000 acres. It could be an hour and a half travel time from one end to the other. And you want to talk about, if they get 2 electrodes they could put together, they're happy.
Yeah.
Actually, they're equipped.
I have a guy from Haiti who wants to join us on the show. I keep forgetting to touch base with him. He's an EMT in Haiti, and he's always looking to talk.
That sounds great.
To get him on here and see what he has to say.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. All right, guys. That's it. So, as always, I am Jim Hoffman.
Josh Knapp.
Dave Brenner.
Stay